Okay, so the law of compensation, let me know if you've heard of this before. I just came across this. The law of compensation says for everything you have missed, you have gained something else. And for everything you gain, you lose something else. This is one of the recent things that I came across, and I wrote it down on a little flashcard. If you're not using flashcards, I think you're probably missing out, because here are some of mine. I'll give you another one. This one right here is just kind of the graph from Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and it basically shows on this side, it shows what happens when you use your energy and you do lots of different little things. That's what a lot of us do, myself included sometimes. And then this little image right here on your right side is an image of what happens when we use all of our energy on one thing. So we're going the same distance, it's just that this one is going the distance on one thing versus this is spread out all over the place. And it's this person that really gets the most done. And let's see if I have anything else. I'm gonna save, if you stay till the end of the video, I will talk about one more. I'm gonna save it actually. I'll save it for another video. It's a good one. But we'll go back to this one. This one's the law of compensation. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else, and for everything you gain, you lose something else. Basically, when you go down one rabbit hole, you're missing out on the other rabbit hole. This was mentioned in this, not in this book, but I have this book right here. This is The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill that we're reading today. Today's book of the day is a book, it was put together by a different author, but it's about Napoleon Hill's life, and I forget who the author's name. But today what we're talking about is a couple of things. We're talking about limitations, failures, and the law of compensation, which we just talked about. We'll probably come back and talk about that a little bit in a few minutes. And so the book that we're reading is called Outwitting the Devil. And let me pull it up real quick on my notes, because I should probably give the... So it says Napoleon Hill, edited and annotated by Sharon Letcher, who is the co-author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay, there we go. Credit has been given to where credit is due. So we got a few things that we're talking about today. I think before we jump into it, actually, there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. So there are some authors that are just worth reading. And so Napoleon Hill is one of them, Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy. I'm starting to become a little bit of a fan of this person right here, Robert Greene. I'm going to talk about this actually in the next video I'm about to record. It's the 48 Laws of Power. Really interesting book. I have another one on the shelf by him. It's the 33 Strategies for War, or whatever it's called. But anyways, I want to bring that up because a lot of times in life we'll come across these different authors where it's like such an instant return on investment when you read them. And I think for myself, and maybe for you as well too, we don't want to limit ourselves to those types of authors, because if we can get something every single time we pick up a book from an author, then we should pick up every single book that we can from those people. And they do exist, and they're great when we find them. Okay, so before I jump into the 3 points here, which are limitations, failures, and the law of compensation, let's talk a little bit about Napoleon Hill and kind of what makes him an interesting person. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to read a reading that talks about a conversation between Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie. Okay, so this comes from, page like 6-ish in the book. It's pretty much at the beginning. Okay, My labor began in 1908 as the result of an interview that I had with the late Andrew Carnegie. I frankly told Mr. Carnegie that I wished to enter law school and that I had conceived the idea of paying my way through school by interviewing successful men and women, finding out how they came by their success, and writing stories of my discoveries for magazines. At the end of our first visit, Mr. Carnegie asked whether or not I possessed enough courage to carry out a suggestion he wished to offer me. I replied that courage was about all I did have and that I was prepared to do my best to carry out any suggestion he cared to offer. He then said, he being Carnegie, "Your idea of writing stories about men and women who are successful is commendable as far as it goes, and I have no intention of trying to discourage you from carrying out your purpose. But I must tell you that if you wish to be of enduring service, not only to those living, but to posterity as well, you can do so if you will take the time to organize all of the causes of failures as well as all of the causes of success." And so I wanted to talk about that real quick because I wanted us to talk about kind of the dynamic between Napoleon Hill and Carnegie. So Carnegie, one of the most successful business people of modern day, ran the steel industry and sold his company to JP Morgan, I think for $400 million, if I'm remembering the numbers correctly. And I think it was like $400 million in cash, which is crazy. And so anyways, Andrew Carnegie, being that successful, had access to the most successful people on the planet during that era. And that's important because this kind of quasi-partnership between Napoleon Hill and Andrew Carnegie, Carnegie brought to the table connections with very successful people. And so when we're reading Napoleon Hill, we're not reading theory. You know what I mean? Like if I was to be, writing books personally, a lot of what I would have to say would probably be theory because, I'm still living my life and there are things that I haven't yet accomplished. But Napoleon Hill is not necessarily, although he does talk about himself and his life, and it's incredible, his own personal findings, a lot of his stuff comes from research that was done with people that have the results that you and I desire. And so when we get access to these books, we're also therefore getting access to all of that network as well too, which is why it might not look like it, but reading a book like this is a lot more valuable to us than we might think. And so there we go, there's that. And so that's a little bit about Napoleon Hill. So in the book, Outwitting the Devil, which is kind of this story of how Napoleon Hill at some point needed to kind of face some internal things that he was struggling with, limitations being one of those things. And so the story kind of goes that he had this conversation with the devil, and he was like interviewing them or something to uncover what was it that keeps people from becoming successful. And so I don't know if he actually talks to the devil. He says he doesn't even know in the book. He says, I'm not sure if I talked to the devil or not, but it could have been a conversation in my head. But it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter because the findings here are what stop people from becoming successful. And so I think it even says that on the cover. I'm going to look real quick. It says, Outwitting the Devil, the secret to freedom and success. And so that's kind of what it was. And really interesting because it all made a lot of sense when I was going through it. I could have probably filled up a lot more notes, and maybe I'll bring up a couple of things at the end if I have time, but right now we're going to talk about limitations. So the only limitation is the one you set in your own mind. And so I'm going to read another little snippet here from the book. My experience has taught me that a man is never quite so near success as when that which he calls failure has overtaken him. For it is on occasions of this sort that he is forced to think. If he thinks accurately and with persistence, he discovers that so-called failure usually is something more than a signal to rearm himself and a new plan or purpose. Most real failures are due to limitations which men set up in their own minds. If they had the courage to go one step further, they would discover their error. Most real failures are due to limitations which men set up in their own minds. So basically, the limitations that you and I share or have, our own personal ones, they're made up. They're not real. They're set by our own internal belief system. And so there was like a story inside of this book where he has to overcome his limitations in this sense. And, you know, his inner self was telling him, you can't do it for this reason or whatever. So he was kind of getting filled with doubt. And how did he overcome this? He literally just didn't listen to that voice. It was that simple. I mean, when I was reading it, and I listened to this one via audio, like I do a lot of my books, it was very profound to me. I know it's like really simple, and I just don't want us to miss this together. He literally just ignored that inner voice that was setting those limitations and telling him that he couldn't do it. And it was something that he had to face head on. And then once he had faced it head on, it was like overnight, he was able to obtain all of the things and all of the success that he had been trying to do for years, but couldn't because he had these internal limitations that were set on him by himself from within. So I'll read through a few of these bullet points that I wrote out here. So most real failures are due to limitations set in our own minds, which is really good news, because if we're the ones that are setting our own traps, if we're the ones that are saying, we can't do this because of my history, I'm not experienced enough, I'm not old enough, you know, I can't do that. These are all things that are coming from within our own minds. And so understanding that we're not where we want to be because of ourselves, and if we can take full responsibility for where we are today, I think we can go a lot further in life and actually get some stuff done here. Self-doubt and self-sabotage hold back dreams. It's pretty clear that when we are self-sabotaging ourselves and doubting ourselves, we are wasting our time by being focused on those things instead of accomplishing next level things. And I know it says, my notes here says hold back dreams, but I would go even a little bit further and say that it's actually hurting people's lives. Because if you and I can get our acts together and actually go out into the world and produce something that changes the world, there are people all around our world right now that are hurting. And if we can become the best versions of ourselves and actually get something done, whatever your mission might be, everyone's is different, but just know on the other side of us, myself, of you, sitting in this place of self-doubt and self-sabotage, those people are going to continue to hurt, and they might always hurt in life unless we can get ourselves together. So this is really important because on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really seem like what we do matters, right? It doesn't matter if you, eat junky. It doesn't matter if you, drink alcohol or do drugs or, or go to a party or go do this or whatever. It doesn't seem like it matters that much. But when we remember that on the other side of us avoiding those and staying solid and continuing to push through, knowing that people on the other side, if we can become the best versions of ourselves, they won't have to hurt as much and we can get to them faster. But the more we indulge in the things that trip up most humans in the world, the faster we'll be able to help people. He talks about in the book, I didn't write this down as a note, but he talks about how the devil uses things like cigarettes to hold people back from accomplishing things in their life. Because it's how he describes it in the book is that cigarettes are a gateway thing. They lead from cigarettes to another, and in lots of different areas of life, like overeating, right? And many more areas like that. And so these things that we have in our life, and trust me, I'm not here to say, I'm perfect, because I'm far from it. But I am here to say that if we can work on really battling those little tiny nitty gritty things, because they matter a whole lot more than we realize, then we're going to be able to go out into the world and actually produce something that helps us and our families, but also helps the other people that are hurting out there. Mastering our mind and thoughts ensures freedom from limitations. This is an ongoing thing, something that will never be done with, but if we can master our mind and our thoughts, we will be able to remove the limitations that we have within and free ourselves, essentially. Thinking accurately can turn failure into a new purpose. So basically not thinking with too much emotion and understanding that our failures don't have to be permanent. They can be temporary setbacks, and they, most importantly, are learning lessons for us that we need to be able to learn from whatever it is that's happening in that situation, so that we can adapt and actually continue to move forward and basically recoup and then go win. And then they call it the other self, which is like the bad version of yourself, basically. The good version of yourself. The other self always finds a way to success. So Napoleon talks about the other self in the book. That was kind of what he refers to, like the good version of yourself, the version with no limitations, basically, with no self put on limitations. So I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, it's basically a version of yourself that is not held back by self-destructive tendencies. So positive thought can master all circumstances of adversity, right? So there's kind of a book on this. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big. I'm looking at it right now on my shelf. I'm trying to think if I see any others. Atomic Habits kind of talks about it a little bit, but the way we think, the things that we think, are we thinking positive or negative? Really, really important here, because we cannot get anything good done if we are constantly thinking negative things. And I know that sounds crazy, but we have to get ourselves into a positive state in order to be able to create and produce good things. And so I will just add this here for myself too. Remember, by the way, the reason why I make these videos is because I like to read a book a day, and I feel like I actually retain the information a lot better when I share it. And so I figure, hey, I'll record a quick video, I'll share my greatest findings, it'll help me remember, and maybe I'll talk about something that will spark you to go out there and do something in your life. Maybe something that will just spark you to go take action, or maybe I'll talk about a book that you want to pick up and get a copy of for yourself, because it's going to help you with whatever you're trying to do. Anyways, I lost what I was saying there, so I'll just move on here. So, let's get moving here a little bit. So definiteness of purpose makes life yield desired results. Being clear on what you want. Being clear on what you want, super, super important. This is really kind of the first step. And if you don't know what you want in life, we kind of are stuck here a little bit. And yeah, we got to keep moving. We got to keep paying the bills. So that's true. But if you're thinking about starting a company or doing something like that, it's going to be really hard to start building something when we don't know what we want in life. So we got to figure it out. And I know it's hard. So what do? We need books, we need videos, and we need mentors, and as much of it as we can. And we need time to reflect. If you're not taking off one day per week, I think it's a good recommendation. It's something that I personally do, and it's helped me a lot. Try to sleep in one day per week and get a lot of sleep. I don't sleep as much as I should, and sleeping is super, super important. And if we can get more sleep, our emotions will be more in line, our body can function properly, and we'll just be in a lot better shape. So sleeping is going to be really important, and the reason why I bring that up is because it will help us with being clear on what we want in life. Permanent defeat only occurs when one stops thinking. You only lose when you stop, right? So if you have gotten hit down recently, let's get back up and let's get back out there. It's the only option, unless I guess technically an option is to admit defeat, but I'm suggesting, hey, let's get out there and let's keep moving, and something's going to work out sooner or later. I mean, there's a lot of times where it's like, I'm thinking to myself, man, is this ever even going to work out? Something's going to work out sooner or later. We just need a little time, and we need to get better, and we probably need to get a mentor, probably need to read more books, and we probably need to get better. We're probably not good enough. That's what it comes down to, is we're probably not good enough. I mean, so we got to get better, and we can do that through books and mentors and videos, right? Okay, so that was some of the bullet points on limitations. Next, we'll talk about failures. So failures and setbacks bring us our greatest learning. So failure brings a climax in which one has the privilege of clearing his mind of fear and making a new start. Failure often serves as a blessing in disguise because it breaks the grip of hypnotic rhythm and frees the mind for a fresh start. Failure proves conclusively that something is wrong with one's aim or the plans by which the object of these aims is sought. Don't you just love the English that is used by Napoleon Hill? It's so funny to see how how the English language has kind of gotten much lazier over the years, I guess you could say. Like, it's much more proper how they're talking in this book. Failures also forces people to learn many truths they would never discover without it. I like that point because it's true. If we don't, when we fail, weird things happen, right? New doors open, new findings happen, new learnings happen. We meet new people in those situations. We reflect in those situations. So, if you've been getting knocked down a lot lately, like, hang in there and consider trying to do your best to, figure out why is what's happening and what are the learning lessons. We all go through hard times. Not everything is a picture perfect life that we see on social media today. Life is messy. Sometimes we go through great times and sometimes not such great times. But what we got to do is we got to keep learning, we got to keep working, and we just got to keep moving, basically. So let me find one more good one here. Failure gives an individual an opportunity to test himself, wherein he may learn how much willpower he possesses. So failure is a good check. When you failed or you got hit recently, where are you at on the spectrum? Are you ready to get back up and get back in the game, or are you feeling pretty weak? This is going to be a great way to test and see where we're at and how we're doing. And if we're not doing so good, then we might need to work on that, whatever that might be, and really just dive deep into it. Not ignore it, not brush it under the rug, but try to start diving deep as to why we're having a hard time in that period. Okay, so there's that. Law of compensation. I want to read this one more time. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else. And for everything you gain, you lose something else. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else. And for everything you gain, you lose something else. Meaning, basically, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can either choose to have your cake or you can choose to eat your cake. But you can't have both. You can't have your cake and you can't eat it too. This is the law of compensation. And this is a really important one for us because a lot of us suffer from not knowing how to choose in life. I was talking to someone recently and they were trying to figure out which job to pick. It's a hard decision, right? I mean, that's really important. It's an important element to us and we want to make sure that we get everything perfect. But here's the news. We ain't ever going to get anything perfect. The only thing that we can do is we can work really hard to get a decent amount of the information. I'm going to misquote this, but I'm pretty sure George Washington or somebody along the lines of that says that they need to just get about 70% of the information before they make a decision. So we don't need 100% of the information. And I might have misquoted that. I'm going to have to look that up and I'll plug that quote in another video coming up. So forgive me until then. But the point is that we're never going to have all the information that we need to make, a perfect decision. and we're never going to make a perfect decision. But we can get enough information and do enough research to make the best possible decision in that point in time. And guess what? If we make a decision and it doesn't work out, whatever, we pivot out of it and we move on. But what happens in life is that when we're trying to figure out to go this way or this way and we stand at a standstill right here, we don't move. And if we're not moving, we're losing. We got to keep moving. And so take the time that you need to make a good decision, but we got to pick to either go this way or this way. And then we just got to do it, and we just can't look back. We can always adapt and pivot later, but I think that's what we got to do. So let me read it one more time because it's that important. For everything you have missed, you have gained something else. And for everything you gain, you lose something else. The law of compensation. Thank you guys for being here, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.